Have you ever looked at this little blue zooming creature and asked yourself, what planet do you live on? I would assume the answer from most people would be no, because who plays a platformer and wonders what planet the game is taking place on? It would be like taking a look at Gex and asking where he's from. Oh wait, hold on. It turns out that he's from Maui and has a stupidly fleshed out backstory in which he deals with grieving over his father who passed away in a spaceship while working for NASA in an experiment to see if he could eat tapioca pudding. It turns out that the spaceship blew up because a band-aid floated into the fuel tank, and now Gex's upper middle class life is going to suffer due to his father's death.
Yeah, this place has all the warmth of a Dick Clark special.
Okay, so maybe you have wondered about Sonic's planet, or maybe you've heard some of this already, but I'm here to break down the history of Sonic's home planet piece by piece in every single form of media. So let's get into this, because as with most Sonic things, there's more to unpack here than you might think. Let's start with what's probably the most popular thing in Sonic, which is the video games. If you were in the group who wondered what planet Sonic was from, well, you would have no answers from the first Sonic game up until Sonic CD. But only out in the West, so the US and Europe, would you find in the manuals the name Mobius. And that name there comes from Sega of America's Sonic Bible, which was essentially this document created in 1991, and it served to give Sonic a consistent backstory outside of Japan. However, it should be noted that there are two versions of this Bible, so just watch out if you ever want to Google it and read it. The earlier version actually states that Sonic doesn't come from Mobius, but that he was once a hedgehog named Sunny and that he was from Nebraska, USA. So just know that if Revision 2 never existed, we almost had an all-American Sonic from Nebraska. But Revision 2 does exist, and so that's where the name Mobius comes from. Now, that should be simple enough, right? But not quite. It was easy to call a game Mobius inside of a manual and then move on. But once voice acting came around, it all got changed, and essentially Sega just made it simple across the board. Mobius was very short-lived when it came to the Sonic games, and with Sonic Adventure not making any mention of his world's name, Sonic Adventure 2 would swoop in and make direct reference to the planet they're living on right here.
Hello. What do you think it's like on Earth?
And we can tell then from Maria that the planet they're looking at, Sonic's planet that Sonic lives on, is called Earth. Believe it or not, this isn't where things stop with this planet. There's a chance that you've heard that Takashi Iizuka, the series producer, states that there are two different worlds in Sonic. There's a human world and a non-human world. This has led to some confusion, because if taken literally, it means that there are two worlds that Sonic traverses depending on if there's humans in his game or if there aren't. However, in Sonic Adventure 2's world map, we can see a section of it across the ocean, which is where Sonic's original games take place. This would mean that there are two areas in the world. One is inhabited mostly by humans, and the other one is mostly inhabited by these little creatures, with feet the length of their torsos. So which is it exactly that he meant? Is there two planets, or is there two places in one planet? Well, honestly, it never felt super clarified to me. In another interview, Iizuka would explain again that there are two separate worlds, and sometimes there's a crossover with these two worlds depending on the game, which is just kind of confusing. It gets even more confusing though, because with the introduction of Tails Tube, an official YouTube show hosted by Tails from the video games, Tails would explain this.
I'm originally from Westside Island, which is where Sonic and I first met. Folks like us usually live on these kind of islands, while people like this live in the bigger countries.
Wow, you really covered it, buddy. You sure you need me here for this?
Which I guess means that what Iizuka said isn't canon to Sonic's world, and that Sonic and humans actually inhabit the same planet as was previously stated with the idea from Sonic Adventure 2. Interestingly, this video also unifies all of the games together, and if you played Sonic Adventure 2, you know that Eggman actually blew up half of the moon, which isn't always blown up in all of the games. Iizuka actually tried to explain this, which is essentially that he said that the moon just kind of rotated, and now we're looking at the dark side of the moon, which, I mean, sure. But let's not look too much at the maps here, because it's really hard to unify the games when all the games have a different looking map. For example, Sonic Unleashed features the continent of Europe. It also includes the Middle East, while Sonic Riders includes a place called Space Dimension. Tell me which map here belongs to the game that has Europe in it, and tell me which one belongs to Sonic Riders. If you pick the map that looks like a bunch of random continents to be Sonic Unleashed's map, well, you would be right, and also you probably failed geography. Now, before we close off on the video game, I do just want to mention this. Sonic Chronicles is apparently the only video game in existence that referred to the planet that Sonic lives on as Earth, Sonic's World, and Sonic's World with a capital W. I don't actually want to play through the game to check if that's true, so you're just gonna have to believe me. Now with that, we've looked more or less at everything that the video games have to throw at us when it comes to the planet's names. But there are still other forms of Sonic media to look at, so we're gonna take a quick transition into animation. The first time we'd ever see an animated Sonic talk about his planet would be in the Sonic the Hedgehog OVA that came out in 1996. And although it shares its intro with Sonic CD, it doesn't share much else with the video game, which is a shame because I would love to see more of this giant owl, and definitely not just because I'd like to see the cat girl show up more often. Here, however, the planet is named Planet Freedom, and aside from it having some funky landscape, there really isn't much else to say regarding that. There is an underground city that looks pretty vaguely similar to a human city on Earth, but it is never explicitly stated that this is Earth, so as far as we know, this is a planet called Planet Freedom, and it has always been called Planet Freedom. Now, Sonic would also have a few animated TV shows, with Sat AM, Sonic Underground, and The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. As far as I can tell, there isn't any mention of the name of the planet they live on in any episodes of any of these shows. During the time that these shows were out, however, this would have been when the Sonic Bible was still in pretty decent effect, and so it would be probably pretty understandable, because the shows came out in the West, that this planet would be Mobius. However, it's never explicitly stated, so we cannot make any assumptions. Moving on from here, we have Sonic X, and oh boy, strap in, because Sonic X is weird, like really weird. In the first episode of Sonic X, we can see that Sonic is rushing around, and eventually, due to an explosion, he and many other cast members from the Sonic series get sent to Earth. This Earth here that Sonic and everybody else is sent to is intended to more or less be the same Earth that we live on. It's important to remember that this is Earth, and that the other world, the world that is often referred to in this TV show as Sonic's World, is a separate world. Sonic and his friends have been sent to Earth. Sonic and his friends are from Sonic's World. However, things get weird as the show starts to come to an end. In Season 2, Episode 49, which is absolutely insane that there's even 49 episodes in Season 2, we would learn two things. The first is that Chris's mom wears these weird boob sock shirts that say freedom on them, and she was drawn weirdly stacked. And the second is this right here that I want you to listen to.
Sometime in the distant past, our world and Sonic's were one and the same. Then a mysterious event divided the world in two. Each world suddenly had its own timeline. They now inhabited parallel universes, unaware of the other's existence. The two worlds are beginning to join again, and the two separate timelines will soon start to join together as well.
But how can you prove this theory is true?
It's not a theory.
So yeah, Sonic's world here, I guess, is also technically Earth. Or at least it was Earth way in the past before being split by some kind of space magic. It's actually kind of interesting to debate whether or not this should be considered Earth, because presumably by the way that the planet looked way back in the past, this happened before Earth would have been named Earth by humans. So even though it's the same planet, it was never given the name Earth. Therefore, is this planet really Earth that Sonic lives on? And the answer to that is maybe. Now, there's one other TV show that was also a video game, and I didn't mention it as the video games, which is Sonic Boom. As far as I can tell, in Sonic Boom, the planet was never named, and I mean, if you're able to find something on this, then please let me know, but as far as I can tell, they never actually named this planet in the games or in the show. But what I do know is that there is an episode that features a Chris Chan parody character.
It's almost done. I just gotta finish the arms.
And with that, that's all of the animated shows, and
Hello, I am Sam's good friend and personal assistant, Google Translate. I'm here to mention that Sam 100% forgot that there are 2 live-action Sonic movies. There is not much to say about his homeworld here, aside from the fact that Sonic's home world is not Earth, and Sonic travels through a warp ring into our Earth. So, as far as we know, Sonic's world in this movie does not have a name. It might be another Earth, a la Sonic X, or it might be something else. What we do know is that there's something that is just similar enough to interject to make Ken Penders upset.
all we have left now to tackle are the comics. If you've watched other videos on this channel, you'll know that I've talked a good deal about Sonic comics, and because of that, I'm going to be keeping things brief here. I could spend a very long time talking about the comics, but for the purpose of just talking about the name of a planet, I'm going to try to keep it short. Older Sonic comics, such as the Archie Sonic comics or Fleetway, tended to actually follow the naming conventions from the Sonic Bible pretty accurately. Heck, even the French Sonic comic actually also named their planet Mobius. In the Fleetway Sonic comics, which are the Sonic comics that came out in the UK if you didn't know, Mobius and Earth are two separate planets, with Earth sitting over 100 light years away. At some point, despite the distance, Amy would actually manage to arrive there, although, let's be honest, that's a story for another time. Archie Sonic comics are where things, as always, get weird. Similar to Sonic X, Mobius and Earth are one and the same. However, unlike Sonic X, they are literally the same planet. Basically, Earth was a near identical copy to ours. In the early 2000s, however, Earthlings met a race of aliens known as the Zorda, I think that's how you say their name. Humans, being kind of awful as humans are, kidnapped the Zorda's leader and dissected him. This caused the Zorda race to declare war on the Earth, and they bombed it with this thing called a gene bomb. This more or less wiped everything clean, and thousands of years later, animals turned into Mobians, and they named their planet Mobius, or I guess technically the other way around. Animals turned into a weird furry thing and then named the planet Mobius and called themselves Mobians. Now, there are still remnants of old Earth. We can see Knuckles reads 2001: A Space Odyssey, although I'm gonna be honest, that's weird. It's so weird. I don't like that they're the exact same planet, and it's something that definitely wasn't planned from the start of the comic, and so it's really confusing when it shows up. Now, what's good to mention here, though, is nothing I said actually matters, because the universe got reset after this thing called the Super Genesis Wave, and, well, after that, the planet just never had a name. We never had to worry about Knuckles reading 2001: A Space Odyssey, and life just kind of went back to normal. It's kind of similar in IDW, in the sense that we never actually see 2001's A Space Odyssey, and also in the sense that they just never make reference to their planet's name, as far as I can tell anyways. If you found something, then please let me know. Now, when it comes to comics, there's also the kind of lost media of Sonic's manga that came out forever ago. The comic's actually really fascinating. It predates both Charmy Bee and I believe even Tails. I've wanted to do a video on this for a really long time. However, as far as I can tell, they never talk about the planet, so my video on this manga will have to wait for another day. Now with that, you've seen it all. And, well, what you've essentially learned here, the main takeaway I want you to have, is that basically, the planet is called Earth, except when it's not called Earth. But even when it's not called Earth, it's still probably Earth.